Scott Fishbowl season is hot. Tonight is June 30th, and we're back to running another mock draft for it. Yesterday, I had the honor and privilege of attending Chicago Live Draft. We will be talking about my team as it looks so far, too. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy, this is Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan, right here on Optimus Fantasy. Coming to you every Monday evening until week 1 of the NFL season. I am your host, Evan Sather. Tonight, I have a spectacular guest joining me this evening from Canada. Our very own Lou Brunson writes articles for him. He is the founder of myofficepool.ca, hosting football, hockey, March Madness, and soccer pools for you and your coworkers. He is also the founder of Draft Buddy, covering both fantasy football and fantasy baseball. Please welcome to the show, Mike MacGregor. Mike, how are you this evening, my friend?
I'm great, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And funny enough, I met Lou through the Football Guys Discord server. I didn't even know he was writing for you at the time, which I hadn't heard of Draft Buddy until then. I think it's really cool what you guys have going that not a lot of the major fantasy football sites are doing between both baseball and football.
Yeah, it's tough. The Draft Buddy, in terms of like the draft tool, like what kind of the name of the site is for our custom cheat sheet and draft tracking tool that I created, and we're actually celebrating our 25th year of Draft Buddy this year, which is amazing and unbelievable that we've had it around. It's been around for 25 years. But in terms of the baseball, where the baseball came along, I'm a football guy at heart. I was always like NFL, fantasy football, going way back, and good with spreadsheets. I created Draft Buddy for fantasy football. And in the origin of this thing, I partnered with fftoday.com, which is one of the oldest still free, mostly free fantasy football web content websites around, going way back. And we gave away Draft Buddy for the first couple of years to see if people like this thing. And what happened with the baseball is I had customers who were football customers who said, Mike, can you do the same thing for baseball? I'm like, I don't even play fantasy baseball. I don't even at the time. And I kind of like watching baseball, but I wasn't a big fantasy guy in it. And I said, sure. All right. So we made a baseball one. I never really had a good partnership on the baseball side in all these years, really. So I kind of needed a home for Draft Buddy. I needed a home for the baseball. And then I like, tinkering away with my own stuff, doing web development and that type of thing. So draftbuddy.com was created. That's why the two sports.
I can definitely tell it's from 25 years ago, where it's been a tool that's been working so well, where if it's not broke, don't fix it. And bringing a lot of happy customers, because I'm assuming you've got more customers than just Canada and the United States as well. Have you heard from a lot of folks working with the Draft Buddy tool worldwide, as fantasy football has become more of a global game to play?
Yeah, we certainly have had over the years people from all over the world, and a number of funny stories. I remember years ago, a guy from NASA was like, "This is the greatest spreadsheet I've ever seen," and I work for NASA. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And certainly, yeah, we've had a lot of people in the military from overseas on bases, like using it. I think one guy worked for the Pentagon, and he was like, I can't download your spreadsheet. How are we going to get it here? I'm like, I don't know. You have to help me here. Oh, you have a Hotmail address. Can I email it there? Okay, sure. But yeah, it is amazing to me that we see a lot of guys from the UK. Now Germany is getting more popular, loves the NFL. Fantasy football is everywhere.
It's fantastic to see, and this particular tool. Tell us a little more about the composition of that spreadsheet that goes into Draft Buddy. So maybe not necessarily the secret sauce to give that away that makes up Draft Buddy become amazing, but tell us a little more about what goes into the formula of the cheat sheet, the rankings, the draft tool, and how it it stays separate from what everybody else is doing?
I I originally created it, for myself, to be honest. I mean, because I was in, even going back more than 25 years, I started playing in multiple fantasy leagues with different rules, different scoring rules, and that type of thing, in different formats. So to try to streamline things a little bit and come up with rankings for each draft, each league that made sense, I created, kind of the cheat sheet component of it, and was like, now I didn't do my own projections, so I tended to get projections from other people. And that's where the partnership with FF Today came from. Mike Kruger runs FF Today, and I connected with him over the internet. I said, I need to, I want to use your projections in this thing. He's like, sure, yeah. But anyways, in Draft Buddy, like it basically, you put in the rules, you format for your league, you put in the scoring, you hit an action button, and it creates cheat sheets for your league, and it sets it up. It creates an overall cheat sheet. It creates positional rankings, and then so much stuff has been added over the years. There's tons of ADP data in there. We actually have player stats from the prior 3 years. So some people want to do their own projections or weight the prior year stats. So you can actually like totally customize it in terms of like, I want to use the FF Today projections. I want to use some weighting for the stats from prior years. You can add other projections to it. There's spots to add other projections. So you can put those in or put in your own. It does IDP. It does auction leagues. It'll come up with dollar values if you want to. And then the draft tracking thing is a whole separate part of it too. So now in my philosophy kind of along the line was, I wanted a tool that can help keep you organized and give you good information to make the best draft decisions. But it doesn't, like a lot of tools today, say you should draft this person, you should draft this player. It doesn't do that. It kind of gives you like, let you stay organized. You look at your sheets, you're like, yep, this is what I want to do. And between your choices, you pick who you think is best for your team. But it tracks the draft really well. And in fact, we even have now a sync feature with My Fantasy League, Sleeper, Fantrax, FFPC, where you don't have to input all the picks. It used to be like you input all the picks as you go. There was no other way. There was no other thought to do it that way, to sync it with these providers. But now some of them are opened up and provide some data that we can do that. And even in Excel, we managed to connect to the Draft Buddy website to pull in the data, and I'm going to be able to do that with this mock draft tonight on Sleeper.
Fantastic, and being that it's such an intuitive tool with just a spreadsheet that it'll generate based on what you input it. So I understand you've got a special treat for tonight for the mock drafters and anybody catching this show. How can our listeners and viewers check out Draft Buddy if they'd like to see what you put together?
Yeah, I mean, I figured, I don't do too many podcasts. It's great to be on here. And I figured, I was thinking initially, well, if people share the podcast, then I'll do a draw for a free copy to Draft Buddy. And you're like, you know what? Let's just keep it simple. I set up a coupon code for Draft Buddy. The coupon code is Optimus. And basically anyone watching, and I told the people who were in the mock draft, use that coupon code and go sign up for Draft Buddy at draftbuddy.com and put the coupon code on. It'll knock off 100% of the price, and you get it for free.
Fantastic! You heard it here, folks. Check that out. We'll bring it up at the end of the show too, just so you folks don't forget. So we'll check out the draft settings here real quick. I think most of us involved in Scott Fishbowl know by now what we can expect this year, where the return yards happened last year, and now we've got some IDP scoring that is kind of a little tailored more toward Travis Hunter, being that there's really no other two-way players that can possibly get these points unless by some pure coincidence a turnover happens and somebody from your team, an offensive player, gets a tackle or any one of these scoring points for some reason, they're going to get it. So, Mike, have you played in any fantasy leagues that cover IDP scoring for offensive players? And if you have any recollection for it, have you seen any offensive player that you've had on your team score a defensive point that has made a difference in any of your leagues?
I can't think of any that made a difference. No, not offensive players. No, I used to play in IDP quite a bit, but I haven't for a few years. But I don't know. I don't remember any offensive players really having like a big play IDP making a difference. No, I can remember some like specific, defensive players having a tackle which made a difference in like a final championship game. And something like that, but not an offensive player.
Yeah, it's usually the offensive lineman that'll run down the defender that takes away the ball. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with any of this if it's more people than just Travis Hunter that'll score any of these points. These are some big bonuses, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I find so as I'm preparing for the Scott Fish Bowl, because I have not had my draft, the online one, I start looking through this, and then I start reading Travis Hunter for an hour. I'm like, oh, I better draft him now because he's all I've read about and not preparing anything else.
Definitely. So we're going to get into Vince Mapstone's question. How was the Chicago Live? Vince, to put it shortly, most fun I've ever had in a live draft ever. The picture behind me is the one I took of the entire banquet room at Maggiano's in Chicago at the corner of Grand and Clark. You probably can't see it too well in this view, but I mean, you saw at the beginning of the show, you'll see it at the end too once we have our outro. But we had 2 whole banquet rooms for 108 live drafters, which is a crazy high amount of people to do that this year. I lost track of how many leagues we've had, but this is the sleeper room so far of how our draft is going so far. My team, I am liking a lot so far. I wouldn't say conservative or safe, but I try to make sure that I get my variety to ensure that I get the right quarterbacks for the Superflex slot. The guy in front of me, Gator Raiders, went all running backs in the first 10 rounds, so that was my influence to get 3 good running backs that I really like before I move on to other positions, being that it looked like quarterbacks weren't going too early, tight ends were also not going too early, so I felt safe, per se, based off of how everybody else was drafting thus far. And Robert, you are 100% correct that Barkley sliding to 11 is kind of crazy. Funny enough, I wanted to get Christian McCaffrey at 11, but the guy in front of me unfortunately sniped him. So Mike, based off of what Robert said, I got Saquon at the 111. If you're going running back this late, would you rather have one over the other between CMC and Barkley, or would you go in a different direction?
I'd rather have Barkley. I think you got a really good value there, him falling to 11. Because I'm sitting here going like, I'm drafting 2 in this mock draft, and in my draft, and I'm kind of like Bijan, Barkley. Honestly, like I understand the carries last year. I understand all that. Just CMC seems like such a much bigger risk to me based on the history than Barkley does. So I think I'd much rather. I would have passed on CMC, probably completely. In fact, I'm shocked if this guy was going all running back like this is his plan. I'm shocked he didn't take Barkley on you. Now you say you would have taken CMC, but I would run the risk that CMC would come back because so many people are completely out on him. But he did not do that.
So perhaps it was a good thing that Barkley fell my way anyway. So I'll take it. I mean, because being that it's Superflex, go figure, we had a few people taking note of that and getting their quarterbacks right away. But yeah, I'm more than happy to get Barkley, Lamb followed up with Brees and Connor, taking some shots on those guys and so on and so forth. So we've got a ways to go. We filled out our starting lineups, but I would say, Mike, would you be happy with my team, or who do you think is crushing it so far?
Oh, I didn't look through all the teams totally, but I do like your team. I do like the Lamb Prescott hookup. Kittle seems like a really good value. I'm less in on Hall, and I like Connor. I mean, Connor's one of this. You expect less. He always exceeds expectations. But yeah, I think starting Barkley and Lamb coupled with Prescott is great. This is still Scott Fitzgerald still screwing me up a little bit with the quarterbacks not going early because I'm so used to them going so early, and the fact that they're not is weird to me still. I think with Barkley specifically, like the Eagles are smart. We know the Eagles are smart. I think they will manage him appropriately, and really like he wasn't used around the goal line a ton last year because that was Jalen Hurts. But we know he's got it in him. So if anything, like, yeah, I think it's a great pick at 11.
So we'll see how well it ages. Even if he only gets something like 1,400 or 1,500 yards this year instead of 2,000, I'm still going to be freaking happy with that. I don't care what other folks say. So, Mike, I think we've kept the people waiting long enough. So are you ready to get started with this mock draft, my friend?
I am indeed, yes. Let's do it.
Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and hit start, and let's do this. We've got Jimmy C coming up here. Some of you are from my Chicago Live draft. Shout out to all of you. You all know who you are. So I added 60 seconds per pick tonight, being that I figured we're going to fly through this. It's only 11 rounds, which would indicate these alleged starting lineups, because we're all going to get our studs right away, and then by round 11, that's probably going to round out how you do it. So we will see where this goes if we even make it to before 60 seconds. But Mike, the one thing I'll tell you too is that we've had Jamar Chase going pretty much 101 for all of our Scott Fishbowl mock drafts. I think maybe once somebody else went with Bijan Robinson. So do you have a preference to start this off if you had the 101 instead of the 102?
No, I didn't. Remember, I thought I had the 101. I was going by memory. I thought when I signed up, I had the 101. And then not till I looked today did I realize that I had the 102. So, but the whole time I'm like, geez, if I have the one, who do I want to pick? I mean, I think the one's not great. Even the top 5 aren't great because all these quarterbacks are falling. It seems to me like, maybe, and especially with the 3 round reversal, 3rd round reversal, I feel like where you're at, like the 8, 9, 10, 11 spots maybe are the best spots because you're still getting an excellent player there. You're coming back earlier than I am, and then you're getting another in the 3rd round. You're back up there. So I'm like, when I signed up and took an early draft spot, thinking I'm probably going to take Lamar or Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels, like that's totally gone out the window. So.
Yeah, because that's the thing. This is the Ultraflex format this year. Mike, do you have any experience with the Ultraflex format, or is this your first time?
I mean, I played in some similar leagues where it was very flexible what you could start. Now, sometimes in those, the scoring is pretty skewed, or was pretty skewed to say the tight end. But I was kind of with people who maybe didn't realize. I think actually the first FF Expo, someone had set up a bunch of leagues that we drafted at the very first Fantasy Football Expo, and it was completely skewed scoring to the tight end. You could flex almost anybody, and it was like no one even, a lot of people didn't clue in, perhaps. And I was like drafting, and I didn't even have to draft tight ends necessarily early. It was more like draft some middle tight ends and stack them up, and then you were away to the races. And that's exactly what I did.
Most of my leagues don't have the 3rd round reversal, but being that I knew that was probably going to happen, I made sure to take the 11th spot for my first ever year. You remember, I don't know if you caught the Fantasy Cares streams where Scott's team was a bit cagey about whether or not they were going to do the 3rd round reversal again this year, because I was scared they were going to go do something like 6th round reversal, because you could probably do that on my fantasy league, but not so much sleeper. So I'm glad they kept that 3rd round reversal in there. That definitely helped me a lot grab my 2nd running back, knowing that the guy in front of me was going to be grabbing more and more and more and more running backs as time went on.
I always forget it for the 3rd round reversal. I really don't like it very much. But Jesus, ADP is on Sleeper is going to be a bit of a mess, isn't it? In terms of these guys are going to be out of order from where I really kind of want.
The worst part about it too, Mike, is that you can sort this by flex and super flex. No positional filtering whatsoever.
That's okay. That's right. I was like, how do I get the running backs? Oh, no, I can't get the running backs on their own. Okay. All right. Interesting.
So the way we could set up ADP is just based off of the 2 quarterback setting, which is a default thing on Sleeper. Unfortunately, Sleeper has yet to figure out how to have ADP for Scott Fishbowl, but I mean, I guess maybe if Scott has enough pull one day, maybe he can make it happen.
He's getting there, I think. He is getting there.
So I'm doing what pretty much the opposite of what I like to do in leagues like this, which is go get my quarterbacks and then see where else I can go from here. Even in Superflex leagues, this makes me uncomfortable getting 2 quarterbacks right away like this. Mike, do you typically go for the jugular with the quarterback early in a Superflex league, or do you prefer to do what you're doing right here, which is go grab the running backs that you like and see where else it goes from here?
In a normal Superflex league, I would typically take one solid, steady quarterback, assuming like you're not really overpaying for him. Like you're paying about value. You know, you want to get one of those top 5, 6 guys, and then wait for that second guy. I think that's kind of the way to go into a normal Superflex. When you jump on 2, it's like, okay, great, you got them, but then you kind of always get a little, not burned, but it's like, wow, I didn't realize I could get that guy that late type thing who you liked. So you kind of lose out some value there because you've locked yourself in already on the 2 quarterbacks. Dynasty might be a bit different. You might put a little more emphasis because those guys are going to jump on all the quarterbacks, all the good quarterbacks. I think one top guy and one value guy is the way to go.
So Brainburst in the comments did explain what happened with the 3rd round reversal and why it was a cagey thing before it was officially announced. So he writes that Scott intentionally left 3rd round reversal out of the Scott Fishbowl welcome invite email after having it in it for 5+ years. After testing the data with the scoring, he found that later picks can be more valuable because 3rd round reversal, the goal was to make it balanced, so he planned to announce it and it wouldn't be in Scott Fishbowl, but everyone who picked a later pick was outraged and they bullied him into keeping it. Folded. Since then has been strongly regretting it because the goal was more balance, and 3rd round reversal makes it unbalanced the way that to the later picks, and they got their way essentially after being, well, quote unquote crybabies about it. I don't know if I would have worded it so strongly, but I can't imagine how else you do it unless you just stick to a snake, because Sleeper doesn't let you do anything outside of a 3rd round reversal. That's why I said earlier I'm thinking my fantasy league would probably let you do something different.
Okay, here. Let me see.
Yeah, so I like the Bijan Robinson start, the Bucky Irving, get your 2 good running backs right away, followed up with Patrick Mahomes, and then boom, Travis Hunter at the 402. My Scott Fishbowl live draft did not pick Travis Hunter earlier than the 4th round. I don't recall if there were other leagues at my live draft that went Travis Hunter earlier, but it seems to be consensus, Mike, that Travis Hunter is not going to go before the 4th round in Scott Fishbowl, the majority of Scott Fishbowl mock drafts. Do you see any case to take a chance on a rookie like that earlier than the 4th round?
Not this rookie. I mean, certainly there are cases to be made for rookies going earlier in the 4th, typically. If you know they're going to have high volume, he's pretty risky. I wasn't sure. So are you saying he went in the 4th round in yours? Or
he also went in the 4th round in mine as well.
Yeah. I think it's a worthwhile risk here. It's a little early. I'm a little bit, pigeonholed being near the end of the draft. If you're kind of in the middle, towards the middle, you could take a little more of a chance and see if he lasts to that 5th, because you have to meet with a group of people who are like, yeah, I'm not interested in him. But being on the end, I was like, is he going to make it back to the late 5th round? Probably pretty unlikely. So I feel like I've had to reach a little bit. I stretch a little bit to get him, but this is it's for fun. It's certainly a fun player to have and own in this format. So why not? I do think with a lot of draft, you have to think of the draft season as kind of a progression, between June, July, August, and as we get close to the day, you do see guys who have the forward momentum, like their momentum towards this as start of the season. They are increasing, going higher in drafts as we go, and Hunter's going to be certainly in that category. I'm talking outside Scott Fishbowl at this point, but he'll be in that category if he has like a really impressive preseason or a lot of positive vibes out of camp, even, right? And that's when these guys get pushed up. We're still the very last day of June, very early July. No training camp yet. There hasn't been a lot of news. There have been some positive vibes, obviously, out of the mini camps, but we're not at the point where people are reaching for these guys. They really want them in the 3rd round, 2nd round, but we'll get there with some.
Indeed. So Devon Achane went at the 207 by Deuce 1184. Lou, you're brought up. Gone are the days of Achane slipping into the 3rd occasionally, thanks to the Jonnu Smith trade. So, in case those of you listening have not heard by now, Jonnu Smith and Mika Fitzpatrick, the safety, got traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers today, along with a 7th-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, in exchange for Jalen Ramsey. So Jalen Ramsey got the trade that he wanted. He's going to Pittsburgh. Minka Fitzpatrick goes back to Miami, and then Jonnu Smith reunites with Arthur Smith. So we are assuming that this is bad value for Pat Freiermuth, but now that Jonnu is gone, Achane is getting drafted a lot higher, and there's also some more hype for a Jalen Waddle. So, Mike, what do you feel this means for Devon Achane's value with this trade being very fresh?
I think Lou makes a great point. I think Achane is more of an asset now, and I think he was worth a 2nd-round pick earlier. So I think when Lou's saying slipping into the 3rd round, I think he's saying, he should have never been in the 3rd round anyways. The worry with Achane, obviously, is his size, his build. Is he going to last? The whole Dolphins offense last year, we expected much more, and they really sputtered there. And I know we say it was because Tua was hurt, but it even seemed beyond that a little bit. It seemed like the play calling. They weren't nearly as sharp. They weren't nearly as threatening. The whole, are they going to be able to put all the pieces back together? Is Tyree going to be himself? What he used to be capable of. It's pretty risky. I think on the surface, Achane definitely is. He could be a huge league winner, but there's a lot of risk there too. I think mid-second. I see people will take him here early 2nd. I think it's fair.
I think I have to agree with you there, Mike. I think Devon Achane is definitely worth a 2nd. I could see why he would slip into the 3rd if you're taking shots on quarterbacks in Superflex, for example, or if you want to go for the jugular earlier with tight end. I understand that as well. But as far as Jalen Waddle goes, he has not yet been selected right now, but with Tyreek Hill now over the age of 30 and coming off some injuries, and like you mentioned earlier, the play calling hasn't been as stellar with the Miami Dolphins. Does Jalen Waddle see more value in fantasy football this year across all formats?
I definitely think Jalen Waddle is better than a better player than what he showed last year. Oh, I did not expect Kyler Murray to get taken. All right. Interesting. See, I really wish I could sort this thing by tight end. Okay, well, all right. I'm totally going off. This is why I do the slow draft. So you pivoted to Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. I'll let you finish that last answer before we go on. Yeah, on Waddle, I had him in Dynasty last year, and it was a pretty disappointing season. I think he's a much better player than what was shown. He may not be like may never be like a top 12 wide receiver, but he should be right on the cusp there, especially with that you know certainly narrow receiving tree that they have in Miami, and he's an excellent player, which he showed he could do it all. He can be a high reception guy. He can be a down the field guy. He can be a touchdown scorer. And so I do think Waddle is generally undervalued.
I have to agree with you, Mike. I'm definitely going to be trying to get more shares of Jalen Waddle in my redraft leagues this year than ever. Trading for him in Dynasty is probably going to be tougher because I know a lot of shareholders who loved him even before this trade, so we'll have to see how that goes for me too. Chase Vernon on Facebook just got here. Does he, meaning Travis Hunter, does he get defensive points in these Scott Fishbowl, or is it only special teams? So, Chase, hoping you're still listening. We covered this just a few minutes ago. It is actual IDP scoring. It is not just special teams. And it's IDP for everybody else as well. So there is not... I don't believe... actually, no. It does not apply to special teams. It's just actual IDP. So... Yep. I know they wanted to make that a bit cagey at first too, but I am glad that we got what we got to make it more fun. So, gosh, I wish I could sort by running back here. It's a little tough, but speaking of the Steelers, we're going to go Caleb Johnson here. So, Mike, with these trades that the Steelers just made, and with the addition of Jonnu Smith, what does the backfield look like for the Steelers between Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren? Are their values impacted?
Well, I mean, they should. Another tight end is great in terms of like helping the running game, I would think. So I guess it's still Rodgers, right? It's still Rodgers running the show. So it'll be a lot up to him. I wonder how this is going to go. I wonder how his relationship is going to go with Arthur Smith, because it was just a disaster with him and the Jets, and I don't see him changing who Aaron Rodgers is. But I don't. Jaylen Warren is one of those guys. We, as a fantasy community, we always felt like this guy can do more. Why don't they give him more? I think certainly we did underrate Najee Harris as a football player. In his time with the Steelers, because we're like, we want the big play, we want the 5-yard average, 4.5 5-yard average, and that wasn't really Najee too much. And as we suspected, Jaylen Warren was the guy. I do think Jaylen Warren's a good player, but Caleb Johnson, they went and got him for a reason. This is a great running back rookie draft. I think he probably ended up with more than 50% of the carries, but still split, certainly a good split between the two. Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I have to agree with you there, Mike. I think it's going to be pretty close to an even split in Pittsburgh and with the LA Chargers as well, being that the Chargers drafted Omarion Hampton, but they also paid Najee Harris a modest 1-year contract. I think it was for like $4 million or something like that. So between the, I'll let you make this. Yeah. So you go into Jameson Williams, and now it's back to you with the first guy auto picked. I'll let you make this pick before I ask the next question here. Okay.
Let me get Draft Buddy updated here, and let me see if I can find a decent tight end. Oh, there we go. I'm using the search. I'm going to use the search here.
There you go, David Njoku. We'll get back to him in a moment, but getting back to what I was talking about as well, Omarion Hampton in this mock went at the 401. Do you see the Chargers having a split backfield the way that the Steelers are expected to with Johnson and Jaylen Warren, or does Najee Harris really show why he's better in a Jim Harbaugh offense compared to whatever the Steelers had for him?
Oh, I mean, Hampton looks like a great player. I've drafted him in Dynasty, behind rookie drafts, obviously, to get him. But we're in situations like this where we're like all in on the rookie, and there's an established veteran who comes in, and we undersell like the undersell the learning curve for the rookies. Like, is Jim Harbaugh going to like put up with rookie mistakes for very long to give him the trust to get him in there? I don't think so. So, I mean, Hampton's going to have to really be, blow the doors off. They can't keep the guy off the field type thing for him to get the majority of snaps over a veteran like Harris. And admittedly, Harris he's on a short deal, right? He's got to prove itself thing. But, again, like it's a bit of the difference between fantasy and real football. Fantasy is like, we want to see the big play. The guy can break off a 40-yard run, but there's so many more things that the running back has to do to get the trust of the coaches and stay on the field that Harris is good at, and they want to keep their quarterback upright. So I'd be skeptical at this point until we have more news, see the training camps, get the news out of that. Before jumping on a player like Hampton, where he has a good veteran behind him.
I think that's said perfectly, Mike. We just need to see more training camp news before we come to any conclusions about how high we should be valuing these perceived split backfields between Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, followed by Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren. So Brainburst brings up an interesting point. He says, I've looked at a lot of mocks, and my stance is if you don't get one of the top elite rushing quarterbacks, the top 4, wait until round 6 through 8 before considering a quarterback, because there's no big gap between Baker and Mahomes or Mahomes versus Drake May. So, Mike, do you agree with this stance? I'm not so sure that I do. I think this is more of a get your guy type of tournament, but what do you think about what Brainburst has to say about grabbing a quarterback in Scott Fishbowl?
I understand what he's saying. I think that's a little extreme. I think there is a pretty big gap between Baker and Mahomes versus Drake May. Because Drake May is a little bit still like, we hope it works out. We hope he's going to be a really big fantasy asset and they get the offense figured out. But this stuff takes time, right? They're going to have some garbage weeks. Now, I guess Mahomes had some garbage week last year too, but unfortunately, but still, you want to pay a fair price. You want to pay a fair price. I think those certainly the running quarterbacks are exciting. They can have huge weeks, but there's still no guarantee that they're going to have consistently huge weeks or even consistently good weeks too. Like, there's risk with them too. They're running around, they're more likely to get hurt. So I agree that the top 4, the running guys, they are big value. You got to pay the price for them. But you don't want to get caught with your pants down either at quarterback, even though you can flex. You don't have to start a quarterback if you don't want to. But the quarterback touches the ball the most. They are going to get the most points. Or most consistent points. And so you do still want to get a decent quarterback and not just settle for anybody.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. And as we can see in this draft board so far, plenty of respectable quarterbacks have gone so far. Even if you want to go after like a Sam Darnold to take a shot on him, he's got Jackson Smith and Jigba to hopefully make him look better than he really did, the way that Justin Jefferson did. We got another hypothetical question from Brainburst here. With the third round reversal, and let's say you're picking late, Jonathan Taylor, Drake London, Brian Thomas, Chase Brown, and Travis Hunter are available, which of these 5 guys are you taking and why?
Thomas Brown.
If you need time to think about this and make your pick, I'll let you do that.
Make my pick here. Keep the question up there.
So I'll take a shot at...
I can give a quick answer between 2 or maybe 3 guys, but when it gets to 5, you're like, okay.
Yeah. So
I'm going to go with Jennings. Oh, that's interesting that Purcell and Ayuk went.
Must have been a setup cue.
I want to pair 1, maybe 2 with Purdy, but I went with Jennings first, and then that wiped out my queue. All right, so
I gotta say, I've never seen 3 San Francisco 49er wide receivers go in any draft whatsoever. That's that's fascinating, but it is Scott Fishbowl mocks. So we got Michael Pittman. I like that. I used to believe in Michael Pittman, but I mean, after his back injury that he had last year, I'm not sure how much he's got left in him with everything he's had. But But anyway, so speaking of the Colts, Jonathan Taylor seems to be a piece that I'd rather have from the Colts as well. So between him, London, Brian Thomas, Chase Brown, and Travis Hunter, I think in a Scott Fishbowl format, give me Jonathan Taylor all day because he's still a hero running back. He's proven that he can be a top 10 guy with the right system. And I would rather just get the touches that he's going to get where, Chase Brown, there's going to be other guys behind him that'll snipe some carries for him. I think he's going to go back to a near split backfield, like 60% of the snaps at most. I don't think he's going to get as many carries as he had to take last year. And I like to punt more at wide receiver. So what do you think, Mike? Are you thinking this similar approach, or who would you take in this scenario?
I definitely agree with you that I think in this Scott Fishbowl, I would punt at wide receiver a little bit. That's why I've been kind of pushing, running back, quarterback earlier, and then just trying to get more value wide receivers later. So yeah, I'm not as high on London or Thomas in this format. And Travis Hunter seems early for him here. Now I see FF Today has Chase Brown ranked very high. They have Chase Brown projected very high. And where is Taylor? And they have Taylor down a bit. I might be inclined to go Brown over Taylor, to be honest, because of the overall offense. And it's one of those, even if they limit his carries, which I think is smart, he shouldn't handle the load like he did last year, but he should become more efficient. Taylor, the Colts are such a mess. I read recently how Shane Steichen didn't have very good control over the team. The guys are coming in late to meetings, and guys were paying attention. They're falling asleep in meetings, and it's kind of like, what's going on there, right? I mean, now Daniel Jones may very well be an upgrade over Anthony Richardson right now, but it doesn't mean the offense is going to be good. Now I realize I just took Pittman in this mock, but the Colts, Bengals. Give me the running back, I think, on the Bengals over the Colts.
Okay, yeah.
Plus he's Canadian.
Also a good point. So Chase Brown finished as the RB10 in PPR leagues last year. I have been pushing folks to sell him on repeating that over and over again. So do you see him repeating that same performance, or does he take a dive in overall value? Because I could see him still being a top 20 running back. I just don't know if he reaches RB10 again. What do you think, Mike?
I think he could do it for sure. I can see him finishing the top 10. I don't think I could pick 5 guys who I would let's see, how's that go? I don't think I could pick 5 guys to finish, who are outside the top 10 in rankings to push ahead of them at this point. Okay, let me search for the next player here. And
have you finished strong here?
He was taken. I haven't updated. All right, so third quarterback seems a little bit early. Oh, Kyle Pitts is available. Where are these tight ends? I guess the tight ends are getting sucked up, aren't they?
They have been going pretty strong in these last 3 rounds here. Well, maybe 2 rounds.
I'm enjoying the conversation, Evan. So I will admit I'm less attentive to the picks being made. Tell me when I'm out at the time you're going to time to.
Looks like you're counting down here, so you got 5 seconds. And there you go. You got your pits.
Oh, yeah, I got them.
And then we finish with Charbonnet. So, this is a fantastic
oh my gosh, that was fast.
start.
I didn't even realize that was the 11th round. This is fast.
Yeah, so I gave us a longer clock this time so we could at least take our time a little more. So these would be the perceived starting lineups going 22 rounds this year to finish off the bench for the real thing. But for the purpose of the show, the top 11 is what we care about the most. So Mike, I will ask you the same question I ask everybody after each draft. From a 10,000-foot view in these first 11 rounds, who had the best start in this theoretical Scott Fishbowl draft?
Who had the best start? So first 2 or 3 rounds, you mean?
The first. I mean the first 11. I'm sorry.
Oh. Okay. Well, I do like the teams that took one of the quarterbacks in the first round. Like really. Like I said before, I'm fading wide receiver, so a little bit. So I think, well, I love you got to love Lamb, Neighbors, Brown start from a wide receiver perspective, or Jefferson, Nakua, and I like Harrison too. I don't know. I think wide receiver. I think you're better to go running back, get a top quarterback, really good tight end, and then fill it in from there. In this draft, in this format. So I do like Caillou at the end. Maybe a little early with the Caleb Williams, and maybe not enough running back depth. And, well, don't love the tight end in Loveland as the only tight end. Deuce, 1184 in the middle. Gets Gibbs, gets Achane, gets Chase Brown. Garrett Wilson, top wide receiver. Now, quarterback May Herbert, that could be good, or it could be, why aren't they throwing the ball enough? But did well at tight end, getting Hawkinson, getting Kraft, getting Ferguson, stocked up in tight end, which is great for the scoring. So, yeah, I'll go with Deuce 1184.
Deuce 1184 has been a solid veteran in these Monday night mock drafts with us, especially for Scott Fishbowl. We've loved having him, and he's always done every mock draft smartly, which I tried to do something similar to this in my real Scott Fishbowl mock draft, especially with the guy in front of me taking the first 10 picks all running backs. So I knew I had to get the 3 running backs I really liked early, and then try to fill out the other positions to try to spread the wealth per se in an ultra flex, which, you do the best you can to find the most value for every position because, it doesn't really matter who you're starting, right?
Yeah, that's right. It'll be interesting to see some of these people who are all wide receivers, all running backs, all tight ends. There'll be an all tight end draft. Surely there'll be someone who is drafting 8, 9 tight ends right off the hop, and it makes for fun viewing for sure.
I honestly did not witness this at the Chicago Scott Fishbowl live draft. If anybody listening was also there with me and I just missed out on the team that drafted a crap ton of tight ends right away, let me know, because it's possible I just missed it. But so speaking of Deuce 1184, he took Jahmyr Gibbs after you took Bijan Robinson. RS 8187, who is coincidentally my younger brother Ryan, asks, what are the main reasons why Bijan is drafted before Gibbs in most fantasy formats? Is a larger role for Bijan, a healthy David Montgomery, or coaching changes in Detroit a factor? So the one thing I'll say about that is Bijan is expected to get more lead back work compared to Gibbs, where he's still splitting with Monty, and it's just the talent alone is just too difficult to ignore. What do you think about this, though, Mike? Is it one of these things? Is it all three? What's your take on this?
I absolutely love Gibbs, the player, and we saw last year when Montgomery got hurt, Gibbs was, he was Alvin Kamara 2.0, which is exactly what they wanted when they drafted him, right? I mean, they had that in mind. They had the old Sean Payton, New Orleans, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram plan for Detroit. And then Kamara took off like crazy, like he was an amazing fantasy asset for years. And that's Gibbs. So Gibbs has got the talent. He's the man. But I do think, obviously, like Monty's healthy. They are going to share the workload, which is not a bad thing. I mean, you don't want the guy to be like, necessarily to be like the everything. Every game he's not going to last. It's going to be prone to injury. So it's a good thing. Keep the guy fresh. But it is it does cap the upside a little bit. I think for me, Detroit, the coaching changes are a big factor. The Ragnow retiring their center, longtime center, causing some issues with the offensive line, some concern with the offensive line. I still see them ranked fairly highly by people who rank offensive lines, but certainly is a shakeup there a little bit. So I think there's some more risk with Detroit than Detroit's offense as a whole than maybe we are. The community as a fantasy community is indicating so far with the ADP of some of their players.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good overall analysis of why you may want to steer away from the Detroit Lions, even though, I mean, the talent on paper hasn't gotten worse, but coaching does matter in the NFL, as we've learned by how the Eagles did with their defense with, what's his face, the old Lions coach. He went back to the Patriots. I'm drawing a blank on this, but yeah, even then, like the Dallas Cowboys had the same thing with their DC, where they switched to Mike Zimmer after they had Robert Quinn, and the defense was noticeably worse with the play calling. So absolutely, that does matter in Detroit, as long as they get the right guys to replace all of them.
That NFC North is going to be no joke either, right? Because Minnesota's good, Detroit's really good. The Packers are solid running game. They can keep the ball out of the other team's hands, and we expect Chicago to be better.
All of us here in Chicago definitely expect them to be better now that they have a real head coach for a change, instead of that pretender Matt Eberflus. Good Lord.
Yeah, they definitely held on to him longer than any of us would have thought.
Well, hopefully we have better days ahead, and that we don't just be crowned the winners of the offseason, which, hyperbole only takes you so far. We got to execute at some point. So, yeah, sure. Jamie Parag asks, are you drafting Alec Iomanur because he's Canadian as well? He got drafted by the Titans.
I don't tend to put too much into the draft strategy that the player is Canadian, but it just worked out when I was arguing for Chase Brown.
Well, if I can make that question into a serious one, Mike, the Tennessee Titans do not have strong wide receivers behind Calvin Ridley. So he was a 4th-round pick out of Stanford by the Titans. Being that the Titans are going to have a hard time protecting Cam Ward, do you see any reasonable path for Iomanur to make a name for himself in the NFL on what's expected to be a really bad AFC team this year?
It's... certainly a late pick is worth it, right? When you're taking wide receivers late and they're depth pieces for you, like shoot for upside, shoot for guys who could hit. And if he's got the opportunity, he can hit. You never know. You're on bad teams, it can go, it tends to go one of two ways. It can be a complete disaster and no one's worth anything. Or sometimes it's like, just air the ball out. Let's see what happens. And it works, right? It's just like, they're still losing games, but it's a shootout. So, and we don't really have a great, obviously the quarterback's a rookie. We don't know how that's going to work out. So highly risky, low probability, but certainly a guy like, yeah, sure. Take him late, see what happens. Hold on to him for a little bit. Don't be too quick to dump him back on the waivers, assuming you have a reasonably, deep bench. I don't mean Scott Fishbowl necessarily, but in any league, right? You want to be patient with some of these potential upside plays, but sure, but then get ready to cut bait if you need to, right? If there's better options, if it's just not working out, if it's just not. So
So Lou asked a question. What did the United States do to deserve Caillou, and what can we do to get you all to take it back? The show, not the guy in the 12 spot.
I thought, isn't Caillou Canadian or no? I don't know.
I believe Caillou is a Canadian character, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, he's French. I mean, he's a French. I think he's French Canadian.
Yes.
Oh, see, Lou must be remembering this from his when his kids were young and watching kids shows, and like maybe they were too into Caillou, and he's like, I can't stand it. We all build up those, negatives towards certain kid show characters. My kids watched a lot of Dora and Diego, so we're like, enough.
So one more tidbit to note as well from Robert Goldman. In Sleeper, the targets are not counted, so wide receiver is not as important. So live drafts are on Sleeper, where my fantasy league is going to be reserved for those who are not doing the live drafts or doing the slow draft. So and that's what they did a little bit differently, as we went over at the beginning of the show, where volume is king, especially on Sleeper, where it's 2.5 PPR, but then there's 1 point per target on MFL and 1 point per catch. So you get a target, you still get a point even if you don't catch it. So that's going to be an interesting difference in this tournament this year. So Mike, is it better to have one or the other? Whether you get a live draft and you be on Sleeper, or if you choose an offline slow draft on MFL and you deal with volume differently. Do you have a preference on which you'd rather have?
Oh, I went with MFL just because I'm more used to using it. So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of even now at this point between MFL and Sleeper. But I didn't judge based on the scoring. I actually thought that the Sleeper scoring was projected a little higher, isn't it? Not because of the extra points for receptions as opposed to targets.
Yes.
So the comment there was more saying that it was better to be on MFL, wasn't it? I can't remember, but anyways, I thought the points were adjusted appropriately. Targets not counted, so wide receiver not as important.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that
Stephen Hoops, who's on Blue Sky, and he works for 4for4.com, which is where I do some of my work as well. He had a good article about the Scott Fishbowl scoring between the two, and he indicated that the scoring on Sleeper is a bit higher, but because of the think about scoring for targets versus extra scoring for receptions. He was saying that certainly the higher reception, lower ADOT players were maybe better, like more valuable on Sleeper. So we think about Amon-Ra St. Brown like that, right? Whereas the down the field, stretch the field receivers, a little bit more like Cortland Sutton, a little more further down the field, they would maybe be, relatively speaking, more valuable on MFL. So I think that article is free on 4for4 if you want to go check it out.
There you go. Shout out 4for4, by the way. So before we begin to wrap up tonight's show, I'd like to go over a few sponsors who have been doing good things in the fantasy football industry, starting with Fast Draft Fantasy. We know you love drafting. After all, it's why you're here. And there's no better place to do it right now than the Fast Draft app. Get in and get out with short drafts you can knock out while you wait at the DMV. The Flex 4 drafts are running hot, and the Origins Gamma contests are only half full. Head over to fastdraft.app and sign up with the promo code Optimus for a $50 deposit match as soon as you finish your first draft. That's 10 free drafts, friends. Head over to fastdraft.app now and get drafting with the promo code Optimus. Also, the Fantasy Football Expo will be here before you know it, and we've got you covered. The Fantasy Football Expo is a great chance to meet your favorite analysts from around the industry, participate in meet and greet sessions, watch live industry drafts, and get to hang out with a bunch of fantasy football fanatics for an entire weekend at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Join the Optimus crew in Canton, Ohio between August 8 and 10 for live meet and greets, golf tournaments, cornhole, parties, panels, and more. Head over to thefantasyfootballexpo.com to get your tickets with our promo codes Optimus-2025 for $10 off the purchase of a gold, silver, or VIP package. Ultimate-Optimus-2025 for a $25 off the purchase of the Ultimate Fan Experience. This includes a Friday exclusive meet and greet ticket to get up and close and personal with your favorite fantasy football analysts. Limited number available. Mike, I am so glad to have finally met you. Lou Brunson has mentioned so much good about you and Draft Buddy. It was so good to have you on tonight. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I had a lot of fun. I can't believe the time flew by the way it did, so I'd love to do it again sometime.
You're always welcome to come back. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Mike McGregor, for joining us this evening. If you haven't already, check out draftbuddy.com and myofficepool.ca after the show. And be sure to get Draft Buddy with promo code Optimus. Is that correct, Mike?
That is right. Yep.
You get Draft Buddy for free, one time only. Be sure to take advantage of this while you can. Mike, tell the people what else you have coming up over the next few weeks or months that they should also check out.
Well, we're updating Draft Buddy quite a bit now in terms of Lou's doing a great job on the rankings. We keep the news updated all the time. He's writing articles every week that we are posting for football as we lead up. Draft Buddy itself, like the thing people need to realize is, you don't have to wait to get it. Wait closer to your draft. You get it now, and we update the projections starting this week, every single week until the start of the season. And then if there's any kind of breaking news in between those scheduled updates, we'll do update it as well. So we're updating the projections, we're updating ADP, we're updating the depth charts. So that is Draft Buddy in a nutshell. And then for the office pools website is a bit stagnant right now. I'm taking a bit of a break. We'll get the football pools set up very soon, and then we have in-season weekly pick'em and Survivor, which are really popular.
Fantastic. Be sure to bookmark both of those websites, my friends. And also, thank you to everybody who joined the mock draft this evening, because it is darn near impossible to do a mock draft show without folks like you mocking with us. Next week, we will be running another Scott Fishbowl mock draft. If you would like to participate in that one next week, be sure to join the Optimus Fantasy Discord server for first dibs on spots. The link is in the description of this video. Next week, I will have another great guest for joining me for that as well. And the only hints I'm going to drop at who that might be are, he has been a fantastic listener on this show who has written great live comments on this show. I'm going to let you figure that one out as you think about that one. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy. Have a great night. I will see you all next week. Take care.